And something very special happened on the 14th of May 2024. Wendy's eggs started to hatch. And as we know, this is the most crucial time in these chicks' life. The line between life and death is super thin at this moment. And so every care needs to be taken to make sure these chicks get their first feed. But before all that, this chick needs to get out of the egg. And this can be a monumental task for such small chicks, and a lot of time the parents do help them out. And they would also eat the eggshells. This has helped to replace the calcium that it took to lay them in the first place. And after about 5 to 6 tender minutes, we finally get a little view of the newborn chick. Just look at that, a tiny little chick. These eggs are no bigger than your fingernail. So you can just imagine how small these chicks must be. And if we watch carefully, we can still see that this chick is still very partially in an egg. And Wendy is trying ever so tenderly to just get it out fully. There we go. The chick is officially free from the egg. The next few minutes, she proceeds to eat a good bit of that egg. And as said, this is to replace that calcium that they find difficult to get into their diet. They don't always do this in one go, and sometimes they bring out the eggshells, but other times they just leave it to the side. And so this chick needs its first feed. And eventually Wendy decided to head out and try to get a little bit of lunch for her newly born chick. A little stretch of the wing and she's gone. But it wasn't for too long, as a few minutes later she came back with the first bit of food. And she started using the contact calls that the chicks recognize and then gape for food. And just look at that, a successful feed straight off the bat. But no rest for the wicked, and she's out again to look for more food. And I'm sure some of you are wondering right now, where is Willow? Well, don't you worry. Willow was doing his part and bringing in food for Wendy and the chicks. He hops in and gives her the food to feed the chicks. And this happens a lot early in the life of the chicks. As I've always found that the newborn chicks always tend to feed better off the mother. It must be a mother's touch. And thankfully it was another successful feed for that first chick. But we know now that blue tits incubate their eggs in hope that all their chicks hatch roughly around the same time, and later on the same evening, more eggshells started to show. A sure sign that more life has sprung into action. And Wendy wasted no time in gobbling up this half of this eggshell. And we get a brief glimpse of the chick as she shuffles, but she knuckles down to continue to incubate the eggs and keep the newly hatched chicks warm. Get to see the hatching of this chick. Just look at that. Brand new life coming into the world. And if we're lucky, Maybe one of these chicks might come back and nest in this very nest box in coming years. And when Willow comes back later on with a nice little bit of food for the new chicks, we get a lovely glimpse of the two new chicks. What a lovely family portrait. And thankfully, we also get a successful feed. Just wonderful. Life really is amazing. And so throughout the night, we had more chicks hatching. What a privilege it is to live in a time where we can see such things. And come morning at 6:25, we now have 4 new little lives in the world on the 15th of May 2024. And Willow is here trying to get a successful feed of his new offspring. That a boy, Willow. A job well done and a bit of breakfast for the new chicks. And we are left with a beautiful view of the new chicks. Just lovely. But as we can see here, it's not always the case that it's easy to feed these chicks. In fact, sometimes, and we've seen it quite a lot on this channel, it can be quite difficult to get the young chicks to feed. And this isn't surprising. They are brand new to the world, blind, and very, very fragile. But what I love to see is just how tender and caring the parents are at this point of life for the chicks. The movement of the parents is always very deliberate, slow, but always very determined to make sure that if there are chicks hungry, that they have the opportunity to eat. And so I'm just going to be quiet for a minute or two here and just see how long it takes for this feed to take. We have a winner. And we also got our first fecal sack of the day. And so later on in the day, we also had another chick hatch. As we can see, more eggshells being produced. So the 14th and the 15th were a very busy time for Wendy and Willow. And it's sad to say that the Great Tits family, unfortunately, footage was lost and it wasn't recorded. But I can say that the 4 chicks from the previous video in the Great Tits nest fledged successfully. And as for Wendy's, we're going to have to wait and see.